Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we're going to be discussing an interesting team building topic which I've stumbled across in my kind of theory crafting den here, and I figured that some of you guys might find it interesting, and it also might open up a bit of a new possibility in terms of building and scaling teams when focused on actual compositions. Now this is going to be a bit of a concept which is somewhat similar to elemental application and reactions in Genshin Impact. If you're familiar with that game, it almost does feel a little bit similar to that. Now I'm not a big Genshin player, but I can see the similarities there. So if you're kind of focused on that, this is going to give a lot more characters in your eyes quite a bit more value, I think, and it will really promote specific team combinations and ways that you probably will evaluate characters in the future. So as such, I think it's pretty important information to share, and I think that you guys might be interested in it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So what are we going to be talking about here? Well, we are going to be talking about on-hit application. Now, what is on-hit application? Well, there's currently two things which I've identified. There's probably a few more in there, but two things which I've identified which fall under this category. And the first and most easily accessible, and the one that everyone's going to have access to, is Ting Yung's Blessing. We've talked about Ting Yung extensively, but I want to talk about her Blessing specifically here and why it is so crazy, and also why it is something that you need to consider heavily when evaluating units and their value in terms of how they will actually perform in teams. So you can see here, the main part that we're going to talk about here is the Blessed Ally deals additional line damage equal to 40% of their attack when hitting enemies for over 3 turns. Now, essentially what this is going to do is apply a separate damage multiplier to that character's skill. And it's going to, apply also to follow-up attacks, and everything in the game. Now, this is actually just straight up proven. We've actually seen footage of Closed Beta 3 to actually confirm this. But the thing with this kind of application here is that it can only apply to one enemy, regardless of whether or not you were multi-hitting them or whether or not you were AoEing them, and all sorts of stuff like that. It actually used to apply to more, but that's the way it works now. So it is a little bit more balanced. It can only apply once per instance of damage. So if you hit them with an AoE, one target. If you hit them with like your Sampo skill, it seems to be one target. If you hit them with a follow-up attack though, like a talent, like Kafka's talent, we talked about Kafka in the last video, that will apply an instance of the Blessing there. Now, what's also cool is that these follow-up attacks, these activations, they do not consume charges of the Blessing, neither do ultimates. So essentially, the more kind of procs or activations of like special abilities that your character does, the better they're going to synergize with on-hit applications like Ting Yung. So we're now starting to see a meta or a game where this is kind of going to be what a lot of the focus with at least that kind of a team composition is going to be. Now, if you guys haven't seen Smexu, he's a guy who I have spoken to quite a lot of bit. He's actually pretty cool, and I talked to him a lot. He played in CBT 2 and 3. He's got some pretty good information in his videos, and you can see here in his Ting Yung video, he has Blessed Herder here, and her follow-up attack here is triggering, and you can see here that it is activating on a target here. Now, you can also see here that it clearly states critical hit. So we can also confirm that these applications, these procs, these triggers from the Blessing can critically hit, which is vital information. Okay, so what can we do with this information? Well, we now understand that it's going to hit, a pretty good amount, and it's also going to be hitting quite frequently with these characters. So if you take a character, who is like pretty cookie cutter, pretty basic, and you kind of take a look at them, like who's a good one, like maybe Arlen, right? He doesn't have any sort of follow-up attack. He's going to be just using his skill, using his ultimate, and he's not going to get the most value out of these on-hit, trigger abilities like Ting Yung, because he's only going to be attacking, once per action. Whereas Kafka, with her Eidolon 2 active, which gives her an additional talent trigger. If you don't know about that, you should definitely go check out the Kafka video. She'll be triggering 3 times as much. Now, how good is this in reality? Well, the reason that I made this video is that I've actually been messing around with Sele and her team compositions in a spreadsheet here, based on everything we know. And when you actually math it out, it is actually a substantial amount, a very substantial amount. In a fully, kind of buffed, fully geared up Ting Yung Sele combination team here, the amount that Sele deals due to the Blessing is actually 10% of her total damage. So that is a big number. And the cool thing is that when you actually consider Ting Yung here, she actually has a trace, an Eidolon, which buffs that application as well. You can see here that it increases the damage multiplier by 20%. Now, the way this is worded actually is basically going to increase the base number by 20%. So it's going to go from 40 to 60. So that's 50% more. So that in that rotation of Sele, she would have like, what, 15%, maybe even a little bit more, depending on how the actual percentage works out, of her damage being the Blessing. And she's a character that does not take advantage of this mechanic. She is not someone who abuses that. Yes, she's a fast unit, but she doesn't have any of these talents, which kind of like proc extra kind of abilities or anything like that. So overall, if you put Ting Yang with the correct character, you could see some truly spectacular results as a result of this here. And again, it scales with critical strike multiplier, pretty much everything. So it is quite effective and quite potent and quite extreme. Now, I definitely think it's going to be nerfed, but you know, we could see. And the actual mechanic behind here is what I want to talk about. So now we're starting to see a world in which application and, you know, triggering of these on-hit effects could be incredibly powerful. Now, we've only really got one accessible way to kind of deal with these applications and these on-hit effects right now, but what I want to draw your attention to is the possibilities. What could we get down the line and what could we see in the future? And then we're going to talk about a few characters who really take advantage of that. So the only other place, I know this is going to be a little bit you know, crazy, which I've seen a similar effect is Sele's Eidolon 6 here. You can see here, let's take a look and read it. After Sele uses her ultimate, inflict the target with Butterfly Flurry for 1 turn. Enemies suffering from Butterfly Flurry take additional quantum damage equal to 18% of their ultimate damage each time they are attacked. Again, this is another on-hit effect. Now, I haven't tested E6 Sele. I mean, I don't think that anyone has access to her in CBT3. I mean, how are you going to get 6 of her? That would be crazy. Actually, it's 7. But the way that this reads and the way that this seems is very similar to the way that Ting Yang works. So if you, for example, paired a Sele with a Kafka, and Kafka had E2, she would trigger this in theory 3 times, which would obviously be absolutely out of this control. That would be ridiculous. If you take actually a look at how that would scale, you'd essentially be triggering over half of a Sele ultimate every single time Kafka moved. And if you delayed that action of that enemy and, you know, you kind of extended the duration of this debuff here, you could be getting into some truly ridiculous and absurd territories already. Okay, so we can kind of really truly understand the value now of these on-hit effects, as well as, you know, trying to identify characters who can abuse them. Now, they may completely remove the ability to kind of like trigger them with follow-up attacks in live. That's completely possible, but I highly doubt that. You know, I don't think it's going to go that way. I think that they will leave it in. But, you know, we can kind of go look and take a look at that. All right, so well, let's take a look now and talk a little bit about characters who best abuse this mechanic that we've just identified here, and we can kind of see, you know, okay, where is this going? Where could this be? And what could our applicators be for you Genshin players? Well, if we want to take a look, and first and foremost, you're probably going to be looking at characters who hit as frequently as possible. So just speed alone, or fast characters, or characters that are capable of building speed, are going to be the best. So, you know, Arlen can build max speed. He doesn't have a skill point cost. Bronya is one of the fastest characters in the game in terms of how fast she auto attacks when she self skills. So that's going to be pretty good as well. Bronya will be a fantastic option. In addition to that, she also gets an Eidolon, which allows her to use a follow-up attack as well, which is completely out of control. Bronya is going to be one of the best triggering kind of characters who can apply those on-hit effects when she gets to E4. You know, that's obviously pretty hard to get, but in the very vast, distant future, this only makes her even more future-proof due to the fact that she's going to be attacking so fast and also applying so many on-hit effects. You know, pairing her with E6 Sele, you know, I know obviously a unit like E6 Sele is going to be pretty good. You know, Clara actually has quite a lot of on-hit effects due to her talent here, the counter attack. It can trigger unlimited amounts of times per attack, which is pretty crazy if she gets hit. So again, this is more potential for Clara. She can be quite powerful. Every single time she counterattacks with a Ting Yang blessing on her, that is going to trigger that on-hit effect, which is, you know, quite impressive. I'm pretty excited about that. You know, we've got a few other characters who can also do something similar. March is very conditional. She's kind of similar to Clara, but she is also another character that you could apply those on-hit effects with. Now, March isn't going to be very good with someone like Ting Yang. You're not going to want to be using the blessing on March, but she would, for example, be pretty good with an effect like Sele's E6, where it is a debuff on the enemy, which triggers and kind of just has an effect based on when and how many times you attack her, you know, which is pretty cool. Overall, Sele isn't going to be bad. She's very quick, very fast. Obviously, Kafka is the best applicator of pretty much every character in the game. If you get it to E2, she is just simply the best with the way that she works right now. Attacking 3 times with the ultimate being every 2 turns at E2 is absolutely out of control. There is no doubt that she is going to be the best applicator pretty much in the entire game, which we've seen so far, assuming she doesn't receive any major changes, which is why I'm actually probably very excited about Kafka personally. I think she's got a lot of potential as being probably one of those units, if you kind of know what I mean. But we have to see, you know, it all remains to be seen what is actually going to end up happening here. But those are kind of the main ones here, I guess, guys. Obviously we don't have too many people who actually do it. Yang Ching is also another one who does apply with his, talent here, but it is not a 100% chance. It is a chance on hit. It's like 60% chance, it looks like here, to apply that that kind of follow-up attack there. It is actually quite significant, and when you do actually put him in a spreadsheet, it will actually be quite favorable with him, with Ting Yang. But overall, it's not going to be as good as someone like Kafka, who literally gets 3 attacks and that ultimate per turn. So overall, that's going to be the video, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this quick news bite here of something that I've discovered. Obviously there's going to be a lot more theory crafting on the way, but it's something I wanted to highlight it here because there's not just the big number. It's not just look at Jing and his big number. It's going to be a lot more to it than that, just in terms of team building. And when you do look at Jing, yes, he's got big numbers, and actually he is actually a character that could apply the Ting Yang kind of buff there. Actually, I'm not sure about that. That is a question for you guys. Do you know, does his Lightning Lord actually trigger follow-up attack kind of procs there? Will it trigger Ting Yang? Will it trigger Cell AZ6? I have no idea. And is there a world in which it triggers it 10 times with 10 stacks? That is a very good question. Maybe he's actually the best applicator in the game if that is the case. But there's a little stuff to test, but I thought I'd highlight this to you guys so you can kind of get the brain juices going and kind of start thinking about some things which you might want to think about with the teams. And I think overall there is a lot of very cool stuff here, and there's a lot of characters who have a lot of different potentials and a lot of ways that they can be built and should probably be very, very exciting to build. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you enjoyed this information, definitely subscribe for more information and more juice. But until next time, hope you guys have enjoyed. Cheers.